Welcome back to the fourth episode of Inspire Forward Podcast. Mi nombre is Angelo Calderon, and on this episode, you're gonna love it because it's honestly beginner friendly. And what it is the mirror effect. What we're trying to focus on this episode is self reflection and how self reflection, if being ignorant to what it is and practicing it, you're really just leaving yourself and your perceptions to be distorted. And that's not really a good thing. So that's why I think this is a really important episode for not just those who are already on their journey and just be grounded in their roots, but for those who are starting out, don't know where to start, and want to be growing, who want to start their personal development journey. And so, what I want you to do is think of self reflection like a mirror. A regular mirror basically reflects your outer appearance, your characteristics physically, but a self reflective mirror is what's reflecting the inner appearance, the things that make you. And honestly, the purpose of this is kind of to understand what our thoughts are, what our feelings are, and to understand our actions. A self reflective mirror basically really allows you to understand yourself as a whole. And so that's one of the reasons why it's really important. But self reflection is honestly one of your main tools whenever you're on your personal development journey, because everyone wants to go in a direction, a progressive direction. And it's kind of hard to know how to get to where you need to be if you don't know where you're starting. That's why it's really important to understand self reflection. And it's also something that's really easy for those who are about to start their journey. And if anybody knows anyone who is feeling like they want to start that kind of journey, I would advise them. Self reflection is the best way to get started. Know what your needs are, know what your strengths are, know what things that you really could work on, that kind of thing. But one of the things that is really important is it can really help us restrain ourselves from distorting our perception. And some of us already have distorted perceptions. Majority of us actually have really distorted perceptions. And the problem with this is, well, if they're distorted and you don't know how to combat this, you don't know how to relieve yourself from these distortions, you're stuck like this. You think this is reality. And that's not true. That's not true. And it happens to everyone. It happens to everyone. And it can cause many different effects mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. But the important thing is self reflection really helps you understand what's really going on and then how you can kind of fix that issue. It can be distorted in a few different ways. One of them is past experiences. And this is really just from the fact that if you've had any negative experience, you're using that to define your inner self. And everyone has negative experiences, embarrassing experiences is really big ones, or just experiences of failure. But they do not define you. It's just those are part of you. And so the really hard part is making those experiences your reality is not the way to go. Um, this can really come about in a different way. One of them is a feeling of inadequacy, or another, the imposter syndrome, which I do get sometimes. And what the imposter syndrome really is the fact that you feel like you're an imposter for the acts or the successes that are tied to your character. So if you're a person who really committed a few various different successes, everyone's acknowledging you, and then you're feeling like that's not true. And the minute they find out, they're gonna realize you're a facade, you're a fake, and this, and that. And so it's messing with your perception of yourself. That is not who I really am, kind of thing. Um, and these are things that really distort our perception. Another one can be from the fact that we have expectations set on us. That one's really tough to combat because of the fact that it's an outer force, not just our own, obsessive force, but an outer force setting those expectations on us. And so this really comes from like parents, teachers, mentors, anyone, peers, especially like peer pressure. the expectations that we get from society, that we get from others, are really difficult to combat against when we're still trying to figure out who we are. And so a lot of these expectations can really play a part on what our perception of ourselves should be. And that's kind of an issue right there. You shouldn't have to be anyone else's expectation, but you should be your own expectation of yourself. So that's the problem, is that we should know that. But a lot of people don't really know that, and a lot of people aren't being taught that. A lot of people aren't really getting that exact message across. Everyone gets be you, be yourself, but like, if I was to define that, I really would say exactly that. You should be the expectation you want to be. You shouldn't be the expectation anyone else tells you to be. And I feel like that's a good thing, because of the fact that any expectation you have of yourself, you should fulfill those. And any expectation that you raise, well, that's just going to drive you. Those are your goals, those are ambitions. So it can only better you. But anything outside of that could probably just hurt you. It could really misinform you, misunderstand, make missed opportunities, whatever. But the point of it being is, our perception of ourselves is really important, especially when we're developing from younger to older, or when we have no idea what's going on with us, when we have no idea why we're like this, why do we do this, why do we do that, why do we feel this way, and a lot of it comes from this. And what we can use self-awareness for, the mirror effect, to really understand those things. Some of those things we might be okay with after we understand them. Some of those things we won't. We will never know unless we take the time to really dig in deep of who we are. And what I would suggest for anyone, whether they've started or not started their personal development journey, is basically just take the time to understand who you are. It is not something that's easy. It is not something that you should take light of heart. It is definitely something that is very valuable early on, especially for anyone who is trying to accomplish or proceed to take on big challenges, because those are the things that kind of get tested. And so any challenge I would say is for sure to take the time to understand who you are, and self-awareness is a perfect way to start that. The other thing I would like to say is that self-reflection really helps you to become better as an individual, better for work. I would always say work is something that's kind of a shallow thing for me. I feel like anybody can become better at work just for whatever reason, but it can help you there. But I think it's always, always, always really important that we become better for the relationships we have with ourselves and others. And so self-reflection self-reflection can help you out with the things that you want to have that are truly valuable. And it's one of those things is the relationship you have with others. The reason being is because if you know who you are, you know how to express yourself the best way possible to others. Also, you know that the person you are is whatever kind of relationship you might have with whoever it may be. You know the person you are is grounded. So any experiences you might have in life won't easily shake you. Experiences in life always shake us. It depends on how easy it shakes us. And one of the things that really keep us grounded is understanding who we are. It's a really difficult concept to understand, uh, the idea of our inner selves being different from our outer selves, because our outer selves tends to react sometimes instead of take action, and our inner selves is not something we're really taught to understand. So it's not really something I would expect just anyone to understand, but it is something that I feel like when it comes to self-reflection is a way to start understanding. The things about self-reflection though is, if you make it a regular practice, you'll build up that solid foundation. But another way is if you get feedback from others. So this is a little tricky here. See, you could get feedback from others to understand how you are, the way you behave, things of that nature, but you shouldn't use the feedback you get from others as definition of who you are. It's just feedback. It's just more information. So, I would say feedback from others is a good way to help your self-reflection, but not something to define who you are. So be careful with that as you go through understanding who you are kind of journey. And I would say practicing mindfulness. It's staying present, being aware of your thoughts and feelings. This one's something that is a little difficult to start because of the fact it's like only you know what your thoughts and feelings are. And so having to know what to look for when you're starting out is really difficult. If you're like me, you like clear and precise rules, goals, definitions. And when I started my mindfulness journey, it was so difficult because of the fact I'm like sitting there. Maybe should I close my eyes? Should I not? Should I hum or something? You don't have to. What you really are focusing on is what am I currently feeling? It's all really, really present kind of thing. So, what are you currently feeling? What are you currently thinking? If you feel like you're going down a rabbit hole on something, I would suggest pull back because you want to stay with the flow. You want a consistent flow of emotions and thoughts. That doesn't mean you got to go on a roller coaster. It just means you're not, you know, obsessing on anything. Mindfulness is really relaxing when you get to practice it, and it really helps you when you have those perception distortions because of the fact that whatever some of us might be obsessing on a flaw, might be obsessing over this is just how I am. It's me every time. I do this every time. Mindfulness will allow you to realize you're feeling this way and it's causing you to revert maybe to these kinds of actions, these kinds of thinking. Okay, I need to stop thinking like that. I need to change my thought process. And overall, I think that the biggest thing to move from self awareness is to a more long term goal of identifying the distortions themselves. So, self awareness is identifying the inner self, but then I would think a little bit more advanced, a little bit harder, but really, really useful is to identify when you're having a distortive perception. You can practice this by reforming your negative thoughts. So, as I just said, like you're thinking of these consistent thoughts that are negative. So, I failed, I failed, I failed. I would switch it to I learned. I just learned this. I learned that. I learned that. Or if you have something that isn't maybe failure, but a little bit. I don't really have these kinds of thoughts, so it's kind of hard for me to relate to these specifically. But I'm assuming there's some thoughts that aren't really helpful, not just to our perception of ourselves, but aren't really helpful and kind of. I'm trying to think of the word here. Sabotaging, self sabotaging. And so I feel like some of them can be very, very destructive. And when you're thinking those destructive thoughts, there has to be a way that you can convert those into more positive or at least neutral ways. So that way you're not really taking yourself apart. The importance of self reflection is to understand who you are, what you're feeling, and what you're thinking, why you take certain actions. Identify those distortions. They're going to help you out whenever you're going through these really tough moments of what you're feeling, thinking, and taking these actions. And instead of going worse and worse, you can relieve yourself. You can take some time to heal if you're feeling hurt, but also to better yourself from the fact that I'm not going to have any of these negative ideas of who I am. Any person that wants to progress, any person that wants to grow, these are people that have long term, really high goals. And that takes resilience, that takes a good foundation of knowing who you are. And so we can't get there if we constantly think the person we are on the inside is someone not worth of that. I would think that one of the worst things to think about yourself is that you are not worth getting to a place that is content, that is just happy, but also, maybe some of us have goals to be more knowledgeable, have goals to break certain curses. I would say a lot of us can really relate to figurative speech, and so I know some of us could think of things that we go through all the time as a curse. And so thinking of those things being negative all the time, that's a way to start to changing that negative to positive. I always think at least neutral, but always shoot for a positive. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.